Welcome to the Pinch to Zoom podcast. I'm Stetson.
And I'm Gabe.
And in this episode, we'll get in an Australian accent because we're hunting for the Sony a7S3. Where is it? Where has it been? And the other video camera competitors that are out in the wild.
Wow, that makes so much sense that you're doing an Australian accent because none of the camera companies are from Australia. And even if they were, why would you need to do an Australian accent?
Because, Gabe, that Australia is where there's many wild animals and people, it just feels right. It fits the mood because we're hunting for something that hasn't been seen before, and it's a mythical creature. May not even exist. We don't know a whole lot about
mate,
it.
Don't say that it doesn't exist because I know that the a7S3 is coming right and fast around the corner. I can tell you that. I can. Went a little cockney there, but yeah, we're talking about the a7S3 mainly because it's been the one thing on my mind for the past probably 5 years. No, not really. The a7S2 only came out. Yeah, well, the a7S2 came out in 2015, so a little less, almost 4 years basically. Ever since it was released, I've been thinking about the S3, and Sony's just been holding out, and the people waiting online are just there. It's like it's a unicorn out there, you'd think, that we're trying to see, because we're waiting for it, and nothing's coming yet.
Have you thought about anything else in that time, or is it just...
What do you mean?
The Sony...
What do you mean, anything else?
You could think about other things and go about your life.
What do you mean? The A7S3, that's...
Okay,
A7S3.
Well, Gabe's clearly focused.
A7S3.
Eyes are on the prize. I think before we get out there, Gabe, let's hop in our Jeep. Let's turn the radio on and listen to some quick news.
All right, first off in quick news, let's talk about Snapchat Spectacles 3, right?
Well, what? Well, I mean, it's true. We need to keep our eyes sun protected.
Yeah, we need some good sunglasses. Yeah, get some good sunnies on.
We want to make sure we have the video cameras on at all times in case we spot this wild creature. Because that's what the Snapchat Spectacles 2 had, right? They had these cameras. You could record
one camera.
Video. They had these one camera.
These camera.
These camera. And you could record things. So, Gabe,
I don't know. I actually bought the Spectacles 1. I didn't buy the Spectacles 2. And as you can tell in a little bit, you'll probably know what I'm going to be doing with the Spectacles 3. So Spectacles 1 launched, I think, 2017, kind of in the winter, spring. They launched with like a pop-up shop in New York City and different places around the world, and then eventually went on sale online for about $140. Then last fall, you got the Spectacles 2, another pair of sunglasses with a camera in them that can, basically you connect them to your Snapchat app, you record stuff when you're out, and then you can upload them to Snapchat. And those were $200. Now, $200 for a pair of sunglasses, I guess, isn't too bad. Especially, they have a camera in them, but they're not the most stylish sunglasses as well. So it's like, And Snapchat apparently heard all that feedback and went, well, you thought $200 was expensive? Try $380, boy.
Whoa, that's a lot of money for sunglasses and for a camera. I mean, are they just doing this generationally? Like, all right, Snapchat Spectacles 1 was in like over $100. 2 was getting closer to $200. 3, we just blew past $300. Is that?
Well, they doubled the amount of cameras on there, so maybe they figured, all right, double the price.
I don't know. So it's got 2 cameras. What does the dual camera? I mean, finally, my grammar fits the cameras now, right?
Yeah,
Boom.
You were just thinking about third generation. Well, this new Spectacles 3, the original Spectacles, the cool thing about them was it recorded in a circular video format. So if you're watching it on Snapchat with your phone, you can look at it vertically, horizontally, at a 45-degree angle, and it's always going to fill your whole phone screen, which actually I honestly thought was really cool. That's why I bought the first generation. These new ones do continue that, but now with the 2 cameras, you can actually do some cool 3D stuff because obviously the cameras are positioned right on the outside of your 2, frames. And so they're about eye distance apart. So when you record something, say, a picture, it'll get that 2 slightly different vantage points, and it can do some cool effects where it's like rocking back and forth, like looking slightly to one side and the other side of a person, or your subject. And then also with video, you can do some cool 3D filters. So like if you're, walking someplace, you can actually have stuff that's kind of tracked into the environment and like located in 3D space rather than just slapped over the image. So it's actually some pretty cool stuff that they've done with these new generation of spectacles, but the fact that it's $380 is, possibly a little bit of a sticking point for most people, especially since Snapchat is mainly just kind of just a fun app for most people and not really a business tool or like something they're really spending a lot of time on.
Who do you think these Snapchat Spectacles 3 are for? That's my question.
Well, they're definitely trying to, I think their strategy is go after, the bit more premium crowd. They're calling these ones exclusive, in limited quantities. So they haven't said how much, but I think they're trying to, put that little air of people, who are techies and, who have a lot of cash to throw around could be looking at them like, hey, these are the new like status symbol to show that I'm with it and I'm also like don't really care about my money. Kind of like a Supreme thing.
What if they just made enough for the tech reviewer community and only sold to them?
I mean, that possibly could work, but I feel like that would not be worth all the manufacturing costs of setting up that whole manufacturing line and such.
It's funny.
Yeah, we'll see them coming out in the fall. They're available to pre-order now. You can check them out at like www.spectacles.com because I don't know. No one had that, website before Snapchat. I kind of find it hard to believe. So yeah, check them out. They are kind of cool to look at, and they're definitely like kind of some piece of technology that I think is always interesting. And, at $140, I was willing to buy. Now at $380, no, not really.
I think it's going to be a pass for me too. We were able to play around with these in my social media class, I think the first or second generation, and they're a very interesting device. I think it's fascinating what Snapchat is doing. I don't think these are really going to be for the mass market. It's going to be a more niche audience. I think the tech is cool, but I personally have yet to see a real use case and a real reason to buy the spectacles.
What I really would want them to release, actually, and I think they should do, is couldn't they make it somehow that they could do a 360 camera? Like, so it like I think sunglasses that had 4 cameras in them, so they took angles all around you, and then when you're watching it on Snapchat, you can just pan around and look everywhere. Like, that would be really cool, I think.
Maybe like a Snapchat hat.
Yeah. Or just like a Snapchat bodysuit and just covered in cameras.
We see yellow people just running around.
Yeah, with these like DSLRs taped to them. That's gonna work. So yeah, check it out. Kind of a cool thing to look at, and we'll see how well they sell. The first 2 didn't sell well, so I'm doubting these will sell. But moving on into quick news.
I guess pivot here. You're using the Snapchat spectacles. You're using it with a phone. So segue into phones. Huawei. They had, of course, that fallout with the whole U.S. government not being able to use Android. They have announced their first operating system. It's called Harmony OS. And it's going to be coming out reasonably soon on the Honor Smart Screen. So possibly more for smart devices before making its way onto mobile handsets. But it does look like Huawei is kind of innovating and pushing forward with developing their own operating system, their own app store, and their own ecosystem that could compete with Android and potentially provide their own kind of experience.
That is exciting to hear. It makes sense that they're going first to the smart devices rather than, right to phones, because I think people are going to be a bit hesitant if they're buying a phone, that has this first generation, proprietary operating system. So smart move by them. Probably going to keep releasing with Android for the time being, because I think Google and them are working out the whole thing. I think they had a 90-day extension or something like that. But we'll see how it works and what it looks like, really. And yeah, I honestly have high hopes for this because, as I've said, I think when we talked about this like 3 or 4 podcasts ago, I thought that the smartphone iOS, like OS market, is kind of, pretty much Android and iOS. I mean, I slipped into saying iOS when I said OS because there's really only 2 operating systems out there. I mean, is Windows Phone OS even around anymore?
No, it's not.
No, okay,
it shouldn't count.
Yeah. And you kind of have slight differences with Android because each manufacturer has their own different skin, but essentially you have two operating systems, and it's just kind of sad because we have seen a little bit of stagnation and a little bit of like, oh, iOS does this and then Android does it, or Android does it and then iOS does it, and a little bit, back and forth, and not really any operating systems for phones that are standing out and being like, this is something new we're doing, or this is a new direction we're taking.
Yeah, I like this approach too. Huawei is saying that it'll be really fast, faster than Android with their architecture. It's going to be open source, so developers will be able to get their hands on the repo when that's posted and kind of take a look at it and begin developing for it. I'm really interested to see how this pans out, what it means for the future of phones. I know Huawei has a large presence in China and in other markets. It may be less prominent and prevalent in the US, but it's still cool that we're having sort of another take on what a mobile operating system could be.
I agree that this will be cool, and I most likely will not get it though. Will you be getting a
Gabe? I'm an
Huawei
iPhone
phone?
person.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be rocking that, or I'm an Android person. I'm gonna be rocking that. Not
question?
A
Do you think
Harmony OS.
that this could actually benefit as well because it's a new operating system being built kind of from the ground up, in theory, in 2019 versus I don't know when Android originally was being built, but or iOS back in 2009. That these I know they keep releasing new versions, but each new version kind of builds upon the last.
I absolutely think this could help out. I think this also parallels what we've seen rumored with Android Tizen, I believe it's called, which is again kind of rebuilding the operating system from the ground up. And this allows for faster, more efficient code that could be used on multiple different platforms and devices. So basically, when you walk through an airport or you're going through public transportation and you're interacting with those large touchscreens, getting information, interacting with other things in your surrounding environment, those will be able to run basically one consistent operating system. And I believe Google is calling this Tizen. And kind of this approach can allow this operating system to run on low power devices along with mobile devices and offer superior performance. So, I think it's cool that we're seeing Huawei do this, and I'd be really interested to see kind of Google and how they progress with Android, and if it makes sense to rebuild a version of an operating system from the ground up using new code, new technology to provide an even smoother experience.
That is definitely intriguing. I've only written a little code, but I know if like in my learning experience, if I started writing, code when I was, 2 weeks into learning it, and then, maybe a month, 2-3 months into learning it, my code would be very different. And if I'd been working only on the same base, like same project, and just kept writing on to that one thing, it could definitely, if I rewrote it all with the new knowledge I had, it would be a lot faster. And that's kind of it's a bit of an analogy of kind of what's happening, in the tech sector, albeit very different because it's like 10-year different.
Absolutely. Gabe, I think we should segue into talking about what we're going to bring with us on this safari. So, we got some of the other stuff out of the way. We got our spectacles on.
Quick news.
Forgot and that. I think we've got, I'm seeing one device here that could be pretty
this is
helpful.
Exciting. Okay, all right, Stetson. I don't like your segues. This is exciting news for me. It's tiding me over until the A7S3 is released. We got some news that is the next best news for me. We got a new DJI drone leaked and rumored, or whatever you want to call it. You take these rumors, albeit with a grain of salt, because like most things, you never really know what's true until it's out. But they seem to be mounting up more and more. We got a couple videos out of it. We got pictures. So either someone's doing a very good job of faking the whole internet, or there's a new DJI drone on the horizon. It's going to be called the DJI Mavic Mini, and probably sit somewhere between like the Mavic Air and Spark size-wise, but have a 4K video camera on it.
This is great. I love DJI drones, and I think they're continuing to have a super strong Mavic lineup. Gabe, what?
But this is the big thing. I'm just not even going to let you get to it, because the huge thing here is its weight, Stetson.
It's a heavy lifter.
No. It's the opposite. It's how light it is. It only is supposed to and rumors have it, and I'm actually think it would be really awesome if this was true, so that's why I'm just going to go with it. Rumors have it it's going to weigh less than 250 grams. Now, Stetson, now's when you ask, why is that a big deal?
Well, I was thinking about equating that to a protein bar I would eat.
Okay, well, that doesn't really matter.
Why is this a big deal, Gabe?
Yes, thank you, Stetson. So the reason why this is a big deal, Stetson, thank you for your good question, is because the FAA and many places around the world have picked 250 grams as kind of an arbitrary magic number for, like, if a drone weighs more than that, they think that if it falls out of the air, it's going to hurt someone. Or if it gets hit by a jet, it's going to hurt the jet. So 250 grams, if it's over that, up to 55 pounds, that's where you're going to need to get an actual license to fly in the United States commercially, and that's where, the hobby rules apply to as well. However, if it's under 250 grams, there's no rules whatsoever. You can fly anywhere, anytime, do anything you want with it. I mean, granted, other than like breaking actual laws, like trying to hurt someone with it, or like, I don't know what else, privacy laws maybe, but yeah, you can fly without regard to the FAA drone laws. So this is really huge, as we've seen a lot of places tightening up consumer drone laws for the average hobbyist and recreational flyer.
That is tremendous. I mean, this is opening up almost an entirely new territory where we suddenly have potentially an aircraft not regulated by the FAA. How do you think the FAA is going to respond to something like this? Are they going to impose regulations? Are they going to see how it pans out?
Well, I don't know. They definitely could impose regulations, but the idea of being under 250 grams is that it actually won't cause any harm if it falls on someone because it is so light. So if DJI can indeed succeed on releasing this drone with a weight under 250 grams, then yeah, that would be a huge win for them, because they'd be the first in the industry to do this, and they already have a stranglehold on the consumer drone market, but this would just cement it even more. And one of the key reasons why people think that this is going to be the case is a couple times in this past year in May, they were having their some press conference where in DC where they're talking about flight safety for drones and stuff. And they're saying that all new drone models released after January 1st, 2020 that weigh more than 250 grams will include AirSense technology, which is basically they're putting in a module in their drones that can communicate with flight towers and aircrafts and such. And then they also went on to say in their 10-point plan that DJI will install one of those receivers in all new drones above 250 grams. So they are very careful in saying all new drones above 250 grams, even though they didn't at the time have any drones that were under 250 grams.
That is very clever, very careful wording, and leads me to be more optimistic that this drone is in fact real and it's happening. And I think it would be incredible if that was something they could get out in the world. This could potentially be game changing. I know some rules and regulations are pretty restrictive around events. I don't know how people are going to respond to this, but I guess technically, if it's under that regulation weight limit of 250 grams, you could fly at maybe a sporting event. You could fly over people. You could fly in other situations. And that's that can open up a whole new world in terms of what you're able to do with your drone. And possibly get some new imagery. It's a really interesting position that DJI has put themselves in, and it'll be fascinating to see how it pans out and what drone actually does hit the market from them.
Indeed, people stay tuned. Subscribe to our podcast if you aren't. And we'll definitely be covering this in a future episode when it is released, because even if it isn't under 250 grams, definitely going to be a cool drone. It's supposed to be only $400, 4K camera, 3-axis gimbal, so basically like a Spark drone but with the 4K camera, and folds up even smaller. Yeah, I'm excited to see it, obviously, because I love new drones. I'm addicted to the drones. I can't have enough of them. Give them to me. And yeah, that is the case.
What else did we see from DJI?
We did actually see one more thing. A lot of people thought they were going to be releasing this drone because it kind of leaked right around this time. On August 13th, they had an event planned Unfortunately for those people, though, I kind of knew it wasn't going to be coming out then. We saw the Osmo Mobile 3 come out, so no drone, but still an exciting thing for smartphone shooters. Basically, the Osmo Mobile 3 is a gimbal for any smartphone device. I'm not a big person for filming on smartphones. I tend to, other than just like quick clips, I find like a gimbal and trying to get some real footage just aggravating, honestly. So it's not for me, but for a lot of people, it's, a really good option. And the fact that they now have designed it so it can actually fold up upon itself, make it really compact. Honestly, yeah, that was the most exciting thing. And it's only $119, so they dropped $10 off the Osmo Mobile 2. Stetson, are you interested in this at all?
I'm not interested. I kind of agree with you. Filming with a phone, I honestly thought I was going to do it. The iPhone shoots 4K, 60 frames per second. My camera doesn't even do that. But the image quality coming off of this super small sensor just isn't even worth it. I would honestly consider an Osmo Pocket over this.
Well, except for the thing is, I did a side-by-side test of the Osmo Pocket versus iPhone XS Max and the GoPro 7 Black. I found that the XS Max was actually a lot better image quality because it has greater dynamic range due to like the smart technology in the camera that can, sense, oh, that's the sky, that's the ground, let's expose the sky a little less and the ground a little more. So I found it was actually a little better quality at times, though it's often, when you're using it on a gimbal, it sometimes can be a little like unwieldy of like it jumping focus quickly or like, exposing too bright all of a sudden, yeah.
Even so, I think having a dedicated device for filming is great because you talked about this in one of your episodes or videos. Like you want to be able to use your phone as a phone. You don't want to have it dedicated recording. You're filming something, all of a sudden you get a call that can mess everything up. It's just like it's not a device I want to be using for filming. And even as amazing as the Osmo Mobile 3 is, it's something I'm going to pass on. It's just not for me.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, though, for anyone who is filming on smartphones, it's usually like people who don't want to carry a lot of gear with them. It's nice that this product folds up now. It's not quite as big as the previous generations. It is a 15-hour battery and has some decent connectivity with the camera, so you can do things like, it can track objects on the screen, even has a sport mode that moves a little faster, stuff like that, which is kind of cool. And then, of course, it has like time-lapse mode, hyperlapse mode, and all the other things that you've kind of seen in the Osmo Pocket and Ronin SC. So
great if it's for you, and if it's not,
sucks if it's not.
Yeah, no worries.
And a portrait mode is kind of cool because that's kind of acknowledging that a lot of video is shot in portrait mode. So
I like it. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, just tangent right here. What are your thoughts about portrait video?
I actually see it as a future. Like, I really think portrait video has an untapped market right now. And
but I'm just talking aesthetically. What is your thoughts on it? Because I like it, but at the same time, I also have a hard time, really finding like artistically shot stuff in vertical, like aspect ratio. I think maybe it's just because the way I was raised watching, and we both grew up where there's, films are all shot, widescreen, horizontally. Whenever I look at a vertical video, yeah, it might be entertaining and stuff like that, but I've never seen a vertical video really shot like beautifully, well, maybe beautifully, but I don't know. It doesn't have the same aesthetic appeal to me.
That's a great point. I think I see vertical video possibly more for news, more for communicating information. I think we'll get possibly more vertically oriented screens. We've kind of begun to see that at CES with some of Samsung's technology, their blocks that can kind of stack together. But in terms of actual entertainment value, you're absolutely right. We see the world horizontally, and there is something just super cinematic about widescreen or ultra widescreen video that vertical video can't compete with. You just get these amazing, beautiful landscapes. And yeah, so I think for entertainment, we're going to keep that horizontal, but for information, vertical is a new angle, a new perspective that, I think we'll see possibly catch on.
Yeah, and for people growing up in today's world, kids, growing up with more vertical video, I think it will become more natural and they'll be more used to it and be able to innovate more in that space, hopefully.
Sweet. All right, I think.
We got one more thing that kind of leads right into our main meat or impossible burger or beyond burger of the podcast. We're talking about the new Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. Did I get that right? I guess it's Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. That is a tongue twister. We can also just call it for short BPCC 6K, though that is actually not any easier.
Gabe, you took a very juicy product and just slapped a very ugly label on it. But let's unpack this thing. What is the Pocket Cinema 6K packing? This is actually
it's only packing actually not even HD video. It's 480p video max.
Wow, I'm surprised.
Yeah,
Blackmagic.
It is packing 6K video as the name suggests, and actually it doesn't even cost 6K. It doesn't even cost half of 6K. It's only $2,500. So, round of applause just for Blackmagic. It's not the cheapest camera to offer 6K. I think that's the Z Cam at around $2,000. But for what it offers, it's really the most affordable kind of like film cine style camera that is out on the market now. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I could see this being tremendously popular with indie filmmakers, people who are super into video. That price point is actually very within grasp. And yeah, this camera, huge features. As Gabe mentioned, of course, 6K video recording. It records in RAW, so you get huge flexibility when editing to change white balance in post-production. Really maximize your editing workflow. It is rocking a Canon, I think it's a Canon EF mount, is that correct?
Canon EF mount on there. And also the sensor isn't a full frame sensor, just to be clear. It's only a super 35 size sensor, which is like kind of slightly smaller than, the full frame sensor. So not going to get the full frame quality, but it's still, it's pretty amazing. Max bitrate is 483 megabits per second. I think Sony's cameras might top at like 150, 160 maybe. So it's incredible. And while it can record RAW, you can also, and most people who get it, unless you're recording like really film stuff with a ton of editing, ton of post stuff, you're going to record in the ProRes format, which is great for Apple computers because that's the native format for them.
Absolutely. It is kind of interesting though. You can't actually record 6K in ProRes. So
no, because ProRes actually, I think, has a bit more processing done to it, whereas RAW is just taking the straight frames.
So that was kind of interesting. There are some limitations in terms of what resolution you're filming at and what format that footage is captured. But the other thing with this camera is when you're shooting in 6K or even sometimes 4K, is this camera eats storage for breakfast and for lunch and dinner. And did I mention it like snacks? So if you're filming at the max resolution, 6K RAW, 24 frames per second, you'll get 65 minutes. And that will record and completely fill a 250 gig card. Or if you bump down to, if you increase the frame rate to 60 frames per second, you're only going to be able to record, I think, for 30 minutes, or excuse me, I'm seeing full 6K resolution for 8 minutes, 256 gigabytes at the 3-to-1 compression.
I think you can actually connect an external hard drive, though.
Yeah, so that is a plus. You can get like
USB-C, you can connect a solid state drive to it, record right to that. So a lot of filmmakers like that, because then you literally just take that drive, plug it into your computer, and go ahead editing. Really awesome there. It can record 4K 60 frames a second, and guess what? It can also actually do 6K 60 frames a second. Now, granted, that is a super wide aspect ratio of 2.4 to 1. So I know we've talked about in the past that, a lot of YouTubers now are kind of experimenting with doing 2 to 1 aspect ratio for the larger phones. So 2.4 to 1 is like even thinner. You're almost, I think, cinema quality is 2.35 to 1. So 2.41 is even wider than like your widest widescreen movie. So, very like a niche thing there. But if you've got to get that, widescreen, high res look, like, yeah, that's a really cool thing that it can do 60 frames a second there. The other thing I was going to say is that, while this is very exciting, it's basically double the price of the 4K pocket cinema camera. The one thing we still have yet to see, and we'll have to see once it is released, is how long is the battery life? Because the battery life of the cinema camera 4K is only 20 minutes. So, yikes. What will this actually be? Yeah. I guess we'll have to see. I do think it's interesting and kind of deceiving as well that they call this the pocket cinema camera, when most people who are going to use it are going to build up a rig, that includes like a V-mount or gold mount battery that can power this camera for a couple hours, as well as a screen, a shoulder rig, stuff like that. And not many people are using it like literally in the format that you could slip into your pocket.
I do like their approach, though. They basically have a cheap sensor and cheap body, or cheaper than the competition, that allows filmmakers to kind of build up
and
their own setup.
no in-body stabilization too.
And allows filmmakers to build up their own systems and setups to meet their filmmaking styles and needs.
Indeed. So, yeah, would you be getting one of these, or?
Absolutely not. No, I need autofocus. That's another thing.
I think this does have autofocus, just it doesn't have continuous autofocus.
That's the big thing. Continuous autofocus. That's what I need. And
what do you mean? My eyes just focus once at the beginning of the day, and then that's it.
That's it. You're locked. Like, oh man, we're at 5 feet today. Guess I can't see my cereal while I'm eating it.
Well, I just have to get within 5 feet of my cereal with a long spoon.
Oh my gosh. I like it, Gabe, thinking creatively.
No, I totally agree, though. I also want the photographic, there we go, I can say that word, photographic capabilities, of a mirrorless or DSLR camera. So this wouldn't really be for me at the moment. But yeah, it's enticing because, as I said, there is no A7S3 out, and I'm sitting here using a 4-year-old camera, just waiting for Sony to release their camera and hoping that all this wait isn't for naught.
For sure. Gabe, should we segue then into our main excursion for this episode?
Hold it right there. Before we get there, why don't we tell the people what we are, or who we are not sponsored by this episode?
All right.
So I think you went first last time, Stetson.
You are correct. I did go first for the not sponsored segment of our podcast. So Gabe, are you ready to go? We've got the shot clock.
I am indeed ready.
Ready.
Fire it up whenever you are.
So
ready.
For listeners, this is where we talk about products we're not sponsored by, what we find actually genuinely interesting and we like. We give each other 30 seconds on the clock. Gabe's up. 30 seconds. On your mark. Get set. Begin.
This episode, I would like to say that we are not sponsored by making no big tech purchases until Black Friday. Now, this is a rule that both Stetson and I have kind of followed the past couple of years. Basically, why we do it, you have a lot of new stuff coming out between now and the holiday season, and then the holiday season, you have a lot of big sales. So unless you're buying one of the new products being released right when it comes out, hold off any of those big purchases until coming up to Black Friday, because you'll get good deals on that tech product you've been waiting for all year.
Beautiful timing, Gabe. Beautiful timing.
Thank you very much. Not scripted as usual.
This is something we have talked about and waiting for Black Friday. Basically, I like to make a list of everything I want to purchase and then wait for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then pounce.
Like a cat.
Yes.
Got a new, Alexa, or got a new TV, or got a new whatever it is that you want. What's on your list right now?
What is on my list? I'm waiting for the Aperture RC LED lights to come out.
Well, that would fall into the new category, though, right? Because it's the new or the old on sale.
Ooh, I only have new things. I'm not really waiting for anything old on sale. Maybe the Aperture 120D Mark II. I don't know. Not too much else. I've basically been pouncing. I've been breaking my own rule, pouncing on tons of new gadgets. I mean, I just got the Bose Headphone 700.
Well, those kind of fall a little bit in the new, because those came out. Really, it's anything that comes out in the summer. You can kind of justify, if you want it, get it then, because it probably won't be on too big of a sale come Black Friday. But really anything you get released in the spring or before then is probably going to be discounted pretty heavily, coming up to Black Friday. And the only real sale between now and Black Friday, you'd get maybe Labor Day or sometimes President's Day. But generally, unless it's like a huge discount on one item, you're not going to see any of the real deals that you see Black Friday and that holiday time.
I think my two items, I'm going to say like smart home stuff. There's usually huge discounts on that. And external storage. Like I could always use some extra gigabytes flopping around in my backpack.
All right, yeah. I was gonna keep going, but let's get on to what you're not sponsored by, because we were mentioning a lot of things there that we're also not sponsored by, but we're only not sponsored by two things this episode. So, you ready? Here
I'm ready.
We go.
This episode, I'm not sponsored by the Cooler Master Master Keys Pro S gaming mechanical keyboard. Type with confidence, game with speed and proficiency. Get that beautiful tactile feedback and sound. This keyboard, started using it. It's great. It's fun. It lights up. It's a great experience if you're typing or if you're gaming. Game with color, type with performance. Cooler Master Master Keys Pro S mechanical keyboard.
And nailed it right on the head. Good job there. I'm not a big fan of external keyboards, so I definitely will not be getting that. Sorry, Stetson.
So, whoa, Gabe, you're not
getting paid by them, or not. I mean, you're not getting not paid by them for me buying the product and using your not promo code. So,
wait,
take that.
Gabe, you're telling me you actually like Apple's new butterfly keyboard system?
Oh, wow, Stetson, I see. You're going to play dirty. Okay. Well, no, but I don't like the new butterfly keyboard system, but I also don't like the idea of having to transport around or use an external keyboard. So I just like the convenience, really, that built-in laptop keyboard offers. That's the reason why you get a laptop. Why plug in another keyboard there? Doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, I basically have two desktop setups, one at home, one at work.
To each their own. If you want, I know people who also game usually want their own keyboard. Is that actually good for gaming? Because I know
mechanical keyboards are ideal for gaming. You just get that performance. The keys are super tactile. They feel great. I originally purchased it for gaming and just was using it recently. It's been kind of fun. I love how it lights up in RGB. But to your credit and to your point, I'm also a huge chiclet keyboard fan. I love just the Apple wireless keyboard, so I have that at work. This one at home, but figured it would be a fun, not sponsored topic because it had it right here in front of me.
It was the most fun, and you had the auditory sound right there, so that was really nice. Moving on now to our main part of the episode, mate. Oi, what is that over there? Crikey, is that the wild A7S3?
Oh, I certainly hope so.
Gabe. Oh no, it's not. Never mind. That was just my bad. It's not it yet. Ugh. Well. Yes, we're talking about where is the A7S3? Why is it not here? And please, Sony, release it soon. That last thing I guess we're not really talking about. That's just me begging.
That's Gabe
Sony,
pleading. He wants
on
this
my knees.
So bad.
Anything. I'll do anything, Sony. All right, yeah. Basically, the Sony A7S II was one of the really game-changing cameras for like kind of freelance consumer video cameras. You had I think the original one that kind of changed the game up was obviously the Canon 5D. Mark II, I guess, would be the one I'd say, and then the Mark III even more. So this kind of came after that in the space where people were, not sure where to go. Canon was kind of slowing down their release schedule, and Sony was picking up their full-frame mirrorless release schedule, and the A7S II just came like a beautiful, majestic, like unicorn on a rainbow, and videographers loved it everywhere, pretty much.
Well, and Gabe, why did videographers love this camera? What made the A7S II, which came out in October 2015, such
September,
a great camera?
Actually,
I have
September
October.
2015.
I googled it. I got October.
I googled it too, and I got September. So
well, this is certainly awkward.
Awkward. Well, it came out in the fall 2015 either way. So yeah, what made it so special is people who are shooting on that kind of full frame mirrorless or DSLR style usually aren't using lighting a lot of the time. Sometimes, I mean, you might be shooting in a studio or something like that, but you're also usually getting a camera that's like that for the portability because you're going to be using it out in the field more. And the A7S II completely thrived with a very high amount of dynamic range and very good low light quality on filming, out in the field in whatever conditions, whether it was your no light in bright sun in the forest, wherever you are, it's going to be able to handle it and make it look really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the even strengths it continues to have is the fact that you can use that full sensor while you're shooting in 4K video. I got the A7 III, came out in 2017. That's a very nice camera, but I'm cropping in when I'm shooting at the 4K resolution. So being able to...
That came out 2018.
2018, excuse me.
Sorry, yeah.
But cropping in at that 4K resolution, I'm missing out on my wide angle lens, and that is kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
So
the people, one of the reasons people get full frame, other than just to have that the bigger sensor, just because they can say it and just like it adds a little bit on their shoulder, brush that dirt off. All right, full frame right here, is the ability to have the nice bokeh of using that full sensor. And when you crop in, you don't get that good bokeh when you're using wide angle lenses and such. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame that we haven't really seen any other camera from Sony come out that uses the full frame sensor to record video when you're doing 4K, and that's what we're hoping, and why a lot of people are like me are holding out for the A7S III.
I think something that's interesting is I was watching a video by the YouTube channel Matt, who is Matt Johnson, and what he was talking about is we really haven't seen any new sensors from Sony in the past few years. And what's been this delay? Like, we've had cameras come out, but Sony is reusing older sensors and just putting them in a nicer body, adding some new features, making the experience better. But again, they're not really innovating with those new sensors like they were when the A7S II came out. And his theory was there was actually a earthquake, the Kumamoto earthquake in Japan in 2016, that hit Sony's center where they were developing and manufacturing their sensors. And his theory is this earthquake has caused a huge delay in the development of the Sony A7S III, which is going to be relying on new sensor technology.
That's an interesting point. You did actually just see the R4, the A7R4 come out. That is a new sensor. So maybe this is representing the point where they're finally back on track. I do think that even if they hadn't, got hit by the earthquake and allegedly that slowed them down, they probably would have held off releasing it a little bit, because what you've seen really in the past couple of years is them addressing their biggest complaint was the ergonomics and the design of the body. With your camera, for example, the A7 III versus my camera, the A7S II, those are about 3 years apart, I think. And the difference, we've been using them sometimes when we're both out shooting and like switching off, is really just like night and day of like, how is the S2 ever designed as like a usable camera? And I still continue to use it, but like it, what they're doing now with the bodies is so much more intuitive, so much more nice. Bigger batteries, everything's just, improved so much. So now if they can actually get a good sensor now produced, that'd be awesome.
Gabe, do you want to talk about some of the struggles you've been going through as you've been using your A7S II?
Oh, no, I don't. The focus is so slow. The screen is, sctarting to show its age. It's also not a touch screen. Is yours a touch screen?
Yes, I do have a touch screen.
Yeah, okay, yeah, of course it is. Yes, it's really just like, the only reason I'm hanging on now is because I have a decent amount of Sony lenses, so they've kind of got me stuck. But if they don't release the S3 before the end of the year, I'm probably gonna jump ship to like a different camera. I don't know. Maybe I've been looking at the Nikon lineup, the Z6 and Z7. Very intriguing, even though Nikon is usually only known for their photography, Stetson, right?
Right. Yeah, that's basically what I've heard is. When I was first looking at cameras way back when, 2016 probably, basically it was Canon was great for video, Nikon was great for photo, and that's kind of the two camps that I found.
Yeah, and so the Nikon is still great for photo, but the Z6 and Z7 are nice because they're, mirrorless cameras, full frame, and they can actually use the whole sensor. And when you're plugging in an HDMI to your, if you get a Ninja recorder, external recorder, you can actually record in 12-bit video, which is amazing in today's world. Only really, I think, like the Blackmagic PCC 6K. There we go, got the abbreviation. And maybe the upcoming Panasonic S1H will be able to do that.
What's so special about 12-bit color? Like for someone like me who is less familiar with this color space, like I've heard of 8-bit color, 10-bit color, 12-bit color. What's the difference in that, and what does that mean for filmmakers and creatives?
Well, the way I like to think about it is, imagine you were trying to draw like, a landscape picture, all right? And someone said, all right, choose, you can have, 8 colors. So you go in, maybe you grab like a blue, a green, maybe brown for like the trees, then a white, and you get to pick your 8 colors out. And all right, then you draw that. Okay. Now it's not going to be very accurate. But now say you can go, all right, now let's say you can do 12 colors. Granted, this is a very simplistic example because the difference between, 12-bit and 10-bit is actually exponentially larger because it's, multiplied times each other, the amount of options. So it's very simplistic, but let's even say, all right, say you could get, 30 options, right? Instead of 8.
Now we're talking.
Now you're talking. Now you could get like several shades of green, couple shades of blue, couple shades of brown, couple shades of wildflower colors. Like, yeah, just you really get all the options. So for example, when you're taking a picture of that landscape, and you're like, why are all the trees the same color? That's not how it looked when I was taking the picture out there. There was definitely different shades of green, but your camera just doesn't have enough bits of information available to record each different shade of green. So it kind of has to compensate and be like, all right, we're going to average that green to be all this color, all the blues to be kind of this color or in between these 3 different colors. And so it's really not as accurate. If you can get, more bits of information, you can get more bits of color depth. And then we're also not even talking about, all the information between each frame. That's a whole nother thing. But,
Sure. That's a great explanation. To me, it sounds like you're adding significantly more color accuracy.
I think, and actually, sorry, 1 second, I was going to say also, the different thing is 444 or 442 or 422. Those are also different color spaces. We won't even get into that. But basically, yeah, the more options you have for color, the better and more accurate the image is going to look, and the more you're going to be able to grade it in finer detail in post.
Yeah, so that is pretty huge for these other cameras that are coming out. So Gabe, we kind of talked about the Sony a7 III, what the holdup has been. I mentioned the earthquake. You started getting into some of the competitors. Like, what are the other cameras we're seeing in this space right now? What is competing against Sony? What are people like you thinking of jumping ship to as you're waiting for this elusive camera that is just on the horizon but not quite in view yet?
Well, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K is definitely one of them. I don't think that will grab a lot of people because, like we said, it's not really the same. It's a little bit more for filmmakers and, a little bit more of like a cine style camera. So, not as, internal stabilization, photographic quality, stuff like that. So probably not, that's not the biggest one. The more ones we have to focus on for grabbing potential Sony users and, just being really good options for anyone looking for full frame DSLRs or, I guess we're not just full frame, but, DSLRs or mirrorless cameras for video is probably the Canon offerings or the ones from Panasonic. Those are really the 2 camps, I'd say.
Yeah, I really like the options from Panasonic, and I'm gonna say Fujifilm and the X-T3, like they snuck in there, right? I was looking, just trying to figure out what the landscape was looking at, and I found the Fujifilm X-T3 starting at $1,500, which is super cheap. I paid $2,000 for my Sony body, and this shoots 4K, 60 frames per second, and has 10-bit color.
What size sensor though, right? Isn't that not a full frame?
I think
I'm
it's a
pretty sure.
micro four thirds. I could be mistaken.
I think it's APS-C.
APS-C,
actually.
so it's bigger than micro four
It's
thirds.
a little bit bigger than micro four thirds because I'm pretty sure Fujifilm is kind of against actually full frame mirrorless. They're more, they're like, hey, you're trying to make mirrorless cameras because they're smaller. Why put a full frame sensor in there? So they've been doing like the more micro four thirds or APS-C. Yeah, I know people who have the X-T3. Very, it's a good camera. More people have it kind of as like a, they shoot on maybe like a larger like 1DX Canon, or, a larger, I don't know, whatever camera. And then they have the T3 as kind of their fun, bring around and shoot on the go, because it's, it's still a very good camera, but it's just a lot smaller. And yeah, you see that because a lot of people aren't really invested in a ton of Fuji glass. So that's the case there. And then as far as like Canon, let's just get into that because Canon's still a beast in the video game.
Take it away, Gabe. What
All
are
right.
the Canon offerings?
The three big ones that I have down are the Canon EOS R, which is their mirrorless camera. That's full frame mirrorless, starting at around $2,000, I think. And then you have their 5D Mark IV, which is around, $2,800 to $3,200. And then you have their 1DX Mark II, which is, I think, one of the first cameras that actually shot 4K 60 frames a second. And that one, I think, I actually don't have the price on that one. I think that one's up in the, $4,000 range.
I think it's expensive. Sure. It's old, too, right? Like, that camera's been out for a while. It's
pretty old, and we will be seeing a new, 1DX Mark III coming out between Q4 2019 and Q2 2020. So, yay for that.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and, definitely people are, I think, they're waiting for that possibility, if they're a Sony a7siii user, but that's also a little more expensive. So, that means switching glass potentially, unless you're using an adapter for your current Sony. And yeah, it's not ideal for a lot of people because it's a bigger camera.
I think some of the issues with the Sony cameras is, I like, with the Canon cameras, I like them a lot. I like Canon's color science, but they do have a pretty large crop when you're shooting in 4K often. And some of them, Canon restricts the use of their dual pixel autofocus. Like, it's not able to process the image and focus at the higher 4K resolution, which is a huge bummer, and definitely a limiting factor of these cameras.
Yes, I do think that Canon has to work on that, possibly getting a better processor, maybe like a Digic 9. I think they're on the 8 now, so that's what it would be. It's not ideal, but Canon, again, a lot of people use them because they're better menus and stuff, and also better autofocus generally than Sony cameras. Moving on to Panasonic, though, because they are really kind of like...
They've a pretty good lineup.
They're kind of like the dark horse in this race, I feel like, because a lot of people do know about them, but then a lot of people just completely forget about Panasonic. They've been really popular with the GH5 and GH5S, which, granted, aren't full frame. They're actually not even APS-C. They're micro four thirds, so a little bit smaller than APS-C, but incredible quality, and also you get the really light camera, too.
And they've been working on low light performance. That was the GH5S. Like, that camera performs super well in low light.
Yeah, I think it's 10 megapixel sensor or something like that.
I think so, and it still performs
so basically,
super well.
Yeah, you get bigger pixels and incredible low light. And then now they just launched the full frame cameras, the Panasonic S1 and S1R. The S1 is the one that's geared for video and very enticing. I think it's around $2,800. I'm not quite sure, but either way, yeah. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that while you're looking that up, I was looking at these two. They shoot 4K 30, and you get that 10-bit color, or you could also get 4K at 60 frames per second. You will drop down to 8-bit color, but 4K 60 on a nice mirrorless full frame camera. That's something I'm actually wishing I had, and that's something my camera is lacking. That's possibly an upgrade avenue I would consider in the future. And these cameras do seem super future-proof with that offering, with that color science. And Panasonic even has the S1H, and this does shoot in 6K, which is incredible.
Yeah, it's within 6K with asterisks, though, unlike the Blackmagic one, because I think you have to be shooting a super wide aspect ratio, or no, you have to be shooting 3:2. That's what it is. So really narrow and tall. And if you want to do 16:9, I think it's actually only 5.9K. So a slight asterisk there, but yeah, it's higher than 4K, and it can definitely do 4K 60, and it's even more geared for video than the current S1. So that will be out, I think, probably this fall or before Christmas.
Yeah, I think they're all slated for kind of a fall release date. Have you been able to find the price points for these guys?
Yeah, the S1 is 2,500. No word yet, I don't think, on the S1H, and the GH5S is around 2,000. So
Wow.
all very affordable, kind of in the range of a little less than actually what we're thinking the Sony a7S III will be at, around probably 3,000 to like 3,500.
So we've talked about kind of what the other options are. What features do you think the Sony a7S III is going to have? Like, Sony basically needs to blow the competition out of the water. They've got a huge lineup.
Hold on. I don't know if they need to blow the competition out of the water, though, right?
They need to match the competition in the water.
Yeah, I think they definitely need to offer specs that are competitive and are at least equal, and hopefully they can, also, improve on the specs in a couple areas, because they have gained quite a bit amount of market share in the past couple years with their successful alpha lineup of mirrorless cameras. So they don't necessarily have to go out and be quite as aggressive, but I think they're definitely going to want to be pretty aggressive, because the mirrorless space is, up for grabs a little bit now, because you have a lot of people willing to, switch from one camera maker to another.
Sure. Okay, so then what features would make you buy this camera? Like, what do you hope to see it have?
It exists.
That's it. They rebrand the A7 III.
My check is already written right now. Okay. No, I all right. Maybe what I should say is, what specs wouldn't make me buy this camera, right?
Oh, I would say 4K 30.
Yeah, I think if it doesn't have an improvement above 4K 30 as a top frame rate and resolution, I would be very disappointed and probably not buy it. 4K 60. All right, I'll be I'll be okay with that, and as long as it's a new design and stuff, and maybe higher bit rate and higher color space, okay, cool, Sony. But really what I'm hoping for is that they can hit that 6K range, and also make it so it can do 1080 at 240. That would be really, really awesome. We'll have to see what they're going to do when they ever release it, if they ever release it. Come on, Sony. Yeah, that would be. What would make you switch, though, from the A7 III possibly to this?
I think what would make me switch would be 4K 60, and I think I'd want that at a full frame. Like, what everyone is doing is they're releasing these cameras that can shoot 4K at 60 frames per second, but you have to crop in.
Why are they doing that, though?
Well, so you can slow the footage down to half speed in a 30p.
No, but why? I was going to try to get you to explain why the crop in.
Oh, they're cropping in because they just punch in on the sensor.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Here, I'll explain it why.
Gabe, rescue me.
Rescue you. Thrown in
the golden
shopping cart. Yeah. Basically, the reason why you get a lot of the crop in on these full frame cameras is because, say, if they have a high resolution, like your camera has a sensor that's 24 megapixels, it's going to want to, if it's processing that full frame, all those pixels every time that it scans the sensor, 30 frames a second, and then it has to convert it from 24 megapixels, which is way higher, that's about 6K resolution, down to 4K resolution. That's a lot of processing for it to do 30 frames a second. So what they do is they crop in to get pixels that are exactly the right amount. So usually it's, what is it, 3840, I think, by 2160, that's 4K. And so they get that resolution and then just shoot on that amount of pixels, which generally means that it's, only a small amount of the full sensor. So it's generally, it's a processing thing that they do, which is why you get cameras that do shoot on the full sensor, like the A7S II, has a lower number of pixels, as it only has 12. So that's why it can read the full sensor.
That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, then I would want it to be able to use that full frame. to do 4K 60. I would want it to do 10-bit or 12-bit color, the 1080p, 240 frames per second, in-body image stabilization, flip-out screen.
Yeah, not the flip up screen.
Not the flip up. I want the flip out. Give me the flip out.
Well, you're gonna Stetson honestly, you should keep dreaming. You're even out further than me on that one because there's no way that Sony is going to the flip out.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
That's Canon style and Nikon style. They're gonna do the flip up. So yeah, but what's the wild card here? Do you know what the wild card here is?
Well, that in the wild in Australia.
In the wild. And here's a card right here. No, the wild card is the couple cameras that we have rumored to be coming out in this fall or possibly next spring. First off, the Sigma FP.
Boom, boom, boom.
We've talked about it, I think, about 2 episodes ago, and basically, not much to hear here other than it's a full-frame camera they announced. Going to do 4K in some version and have 4K 12-bit export to an external recorder, so that's exciting. We'll see what it costs and what the exact specs are when Sigma announces it, but the nice thing there is obviously Sigma is known for their lenses, so you're going to get some pretty nice lenses with that camera for sure.
So true. And this one is amazingly small. It almost looks like a point and shoot camera, to be honest. You're getting those Sigma lenses, like you mentioned, a super fast cine to photo mode switch that makes it seamless from switching from taking photos to capturing video, and some really cool built-in processing for cinemagraphs and other features. I think as this landscape shapes up, this camera from Sigma could be a very compelling option and stand out with its unique features.
Very good. You said it all that I was going to say. So the other camera that is a wild card is the DJI full frame camera.
Whoa, what? Wait, DJI coming
do the
out with...
record scratch. Yes, yeah, right? They bought I think, majority stake in Hasselblad. I think that was 2 years ago. And now there have been some leaks about a DJI camera that is not going to be mirrorless like Hasselblad, but be full frame instead and aimed at competing exactly with the Sony a7 series. So, yikes. Imagine a DJI camera that works really well and pairs well with their gimbals.
That is absolutely savage. This could potentially be a ravenous beast.
Yes, exactly, mate. And even you could put it in a drone maybe. We'll have to see. This is most likely not coming out till next spring at the earliest, but very exciting to see on the horizon. Next we have...
I just want to, before you move on, I just want to mention to the audience,
break.
You recently reviewed the AK-4500 stabilizer, right?
Yes.
And one of the things you told me is the real apex of stabilized footage is combining the gimbal with the camera, something like an Osmo Pocket, but with the image quality of a mirrorless camera into one uniform experience. I think with the DJI camera and their stabilization technology with their gimbals, I think that could be it, Gabe. That could be...
Yeah, no, that's what the hope is. I'm trying not to get too excited, Stetson, so don't get me too hyped
I know
up.
your hopes have already been dashed as you've been waiting for this camera. All right, please continue. Thank you for that short break.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Moving on, the Sharp 8K Micro Four Third camera.
Whoa, what?
Another record scratch. Wait, did I just say 8K? Yes, I did say 8K.
No, did you just say Sharp?
Yeah, oh yeah. Also Sharp, the brand from the early 2000s who made TVs, I think. Yeah, what? They debuted this, I think it was either at NAB in the spring or at CES in January. And yeah, it's coming out this fall. It's Micro Four Thirds and it shoots 8K. So this will be really interesting to see. I'm not sure who this is really aimed at because I know the only other really 8K consumer thing on the market was the Redmi. I don't remember what phone it is.
Yeah, some phone with a ridiculous...
Some phone by Redmi that can record 8K, but it really looks like crap, honestly. So we'll see how good this looks because it seems like they're kind of doing it just to get the attention of, oh, it's 8K. But yeah, it's pretty amazing that they are doing an 8K camera, and this could potentially compete with the Sony a7S III.
Hey, competition is good for consumers regardless of who it comes from. Although, Sharp, super medium feelings about
Not
those.
good. Not good for consumers.
Yeah, it's I don't know what they're thinking. They're just like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yes, that is a very good way of describing their strategy. What sticks because it's sharp.
Ooh. I like that. I like that.
That was really bad. And last but not least, the camera on the horizon that could potentially steal attention away from the A7S III is the GH6. Yes.
Yeah, their GH5 lineup was super strong. I know that is the camera I considered the most. It was A7 III.
I still consider it every day, pretty much.
Or GH5.
My life is hell, by the way.
What?
I wake up, scream A7S III, and then think about if I should buy the GH6 or the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6 all day, and that's about it.
Wow, you've got a busy life, Gabe. I don't know how you do it all. I don't know how you do it all.
It's not working out very well. Sony could make it a lot easier by releasing this A7S III.
So what's the GH6? Anything good rumored for that?
Not really much. Potentially going to have 6K video because that's kind of what's becoming the norm at the end of 2019 to 2020. Not because there's actually the ability to stream 6K. No, don't forget that we're in the United States with the worst internet speeds in the world, pretty much, for any civilized country. No, it's because when you film in 6K, you can punch into 4K, and stabilize it, or just be able to crop in, and choose your subject.
I actually upload in 1080p and can just crop in like crazy on all of my shots. I don't.
That's gross.
I upload in 4K.
Okay, good. I was gonna say,
but yeah, being able to crop in and then upscale that footage, beautiful. I love seeing that. I guess 6K will be my next camera. Whatever that ends up being in like a few years for me, like 5-6 years or whatever. But yeah, those are some pretty great cameras. I will add that, while we were out shooting recently with your camera, the Sony a7S II, it has a thermal issue where the sensor will overheat, the camera will stop recording. And to touch on why we haven't seen the a7S III, I think Sony is dealing with heat issues where they are trying to capture massive resolution, 6K resolution, huge image processing, 10-bit color. And I think they just have they're running up against some thermal issues and trying to figure out how they can make this camera stay cool, operate for a long period of time while still record at the impressive resolution that we hope to see it record at. And then finally, I got this from a YouTube comment. Someone was talking about how there's internal politics between Alpha and XDCam Pro teams. And this is it's a tug of war as to whether or not the Sony a7 III is going to get 10-bit 4K. And basically the XDCam Pro team, they want to keep that reserved for the higher end cameras that they work on, whereas the Sony Alpha team is like, hey, we need 10-bit 4K to compete in the market. And based on what we've talked about today, I think that's true. So we'll see what happens, but I think Sony is definitely.
This is kind of reminiscent of what happened to Canon. Sorry.
Can I say Canon?
Can I get a Canon?
Canon.
This is what is reminiscent to what happened to Canon in the early probably 2013, 5 years ago or so. I think when they, were just really hesitant and reluctant to make any huge upgrades as far as giving their cameras 4K, they were trying to just push people to either buy their, Cinema Series cameras or their super high-end 1DX cameras, and were really hesitant. And as a result, they lost a lot of market share because other companies like Sony were willing to put, really high specs in their cameras and grab a lot of users away.
Yeah, it does kind of remind me of that. And we'll see what ends up being served on the platter by Sony when they whip up their a7S III.
I got my napkin tied around my neck and my fork and knife right here, ready to eat.
Gabe is
serve it up, Sony.
Ravenous.
I'm hungry. I don't know. Indeed, yeah. We'll definitely be talking about that when it's released. You can know for sure we'll probably have a whole live stream
Gabe's,
for 5 days after it's released of me just screaming.
Gabe's pulling out all the bells and whistles.
Anything, Sony. Sony, you want me to like fast for 40 days and 40 nights in a cave? Okay, I guess I'll do that.
Gabe, who will you be not sponsored by when that camera comes out?
I will not be sponsored by Sony for sure because I'm going to be paying them, so it's a reverse sponsorship. Yeah, that is. I'm just hoping.
Hey, kids can dream. Kids can dream.
Yes. And that's pretty much it, though, for this episode. Let us know what your thoughts are on the A7S III. Maybe tweet at Sony and tell them, well, they probably already know that they should be releasing it, so don't bother them too much. We don't want to slow it down anymore. But, let us know what you thought. Subscribe if you aren't subscribed, or just tell a friend who you know is also waiting for that A7S III to go listen to this podcast and maybe, tide them over for a little bit.
Yeah, and you can find us on Instagram at Pinch to Zoom Podcast and follow us on Twitter at Pinch to Zoom Pod. You can submit questions to us through Gmail.
And you can follow us on MySpace.
And MySpace now. Gabe, you got that
and
up
LinkedIn.
And running?
And on Friendster, AOL Chat, Weibo.
Gabe, we're going to have a serious
Snapchat,
conversation about our marketing strategy.
Foursquare, and Expedia.
So you can follow us wherever is most convenient for you.
Or we'll be walking through your neighborhood soon, so just jump behind us and start walking behind us and follow us the old school way.
I like it. We'll get our followers going in the real world. That wraps up this episode. I'm Stetson.
And I'm still Gabe, waiting for that A7S III.
And we will speak to you in the next episode. That's it. It's over. Are you going to make it? Gabe, what are you thinking about right now?
Oh, I just want the A7S III. All I want in life.
Plot twist. What if you get a different camera?
How dare you speak of such blasphemy, Stetson?